Hello everyone. Today I've got 3 amazing brand new indie horror books for you guys to check out. So get your TBRs ready because you are going to want to read all 3 of these. They are fantastic. And as a reminder, I have horror books for sale, and you can find the books you see on your screen at the link in the description. And if you want to join my Patreon, you get all of those for free. You get short horror stories every month for free and a bunch of other good stuff. So be sure to check that out if it's something you're interested in. All right, let's get started. So the first book I want to talk about today is the latest from Crystal Lake Pub. This one's coming out in just a few days. So yeah, it's right there ready for you to pre-order, and you'll want to do that. This one is called Demon Drink. And it combines small town horror. It's got some occultish, maybe religious type horror mixed in with there. And it has a really unique concept that I've never really read about in a horror book before. And it's set in a small town. And the woman that runs the local pub, it's an historic local pub. And she's desperately trying to keep it open. Like a lot of small towns, this one has suffered economic hardship. So of course business isn't really booming in her pub. But she's doing her best to raise her daughter and hopefully not to go under, because she doesn't know what else she'll be able to do. And she gets some respite of sorts when a man walks in one day, a businessman. He says he owns a brewery and he's got a new brew he's trying to promote. And if she's willing to promote it at her bar, hang up signs and have a special promotion on it, he'll give her kegs of this beer for free. So it sounds like a win-win situation. She's not going to turn that down, so she does that. She decides on the opening night, after the kegs are delivered, she's going to invite everybody in the town, special discounted price on the beers, the draft beers from this brewery. Of course, the townspeople are happy. She's happy because it's 100% profit for her, and the guy that owns the brewery should be happy because he's getting the word out about his beer. Everything seems to be working out, and the night seems successful until it doesn't. Because the people who drink this brew, they change. They become bloodthirsty. They become animalistic. They become absolutely terrifying. They're willing to do harm to themselves, do harm to their friends and neighbors, anybody that crosses their path. And it becomes a massacre. It becomes, the streets just run red with blood. There's a handful of survivors, including our main protagonist who owns this bar, and her daughter, who did not partake in this particular brew. And they are left basically trapped in this town with these bloodthirsty, animalistic people that used to be their neighbors and friends. And they have to figure out not only how to survive, but what exactly is going on. And they're going to find out some things about that guy who claims to own a brewery, and about something special in the brew and the beer itself. And it becomes this whole occultish type situation, trying to bring on an end of the world kind of scenario with this brew. But who this man is, I'm not going to give that away, because that's a great reveal. Who this man actually is, what his plans actually are, and why he chose this town and this particular pub. It's all going to be revealed in time. But this is just a fantastic, really frightening horror story, because it sets it up nicely. It introduces this guy, and something's going to happen because it's a horror book. So things aren't going to have a happy ending after he gives her these free kegs of beer, right? But I was not expecting what did happen, because it's very, very terrifying, very bloody, and I absolutely loved it. Yeah, this one is fantastic. Of course, I highly recommend it. And there's a link down below where you can pick up your copy in the description. And next we have Dead End Tours, Yardley's Cross. Now, this is the 5th book in the Dead End Tours series, but each one can be read as a standalone novel. And this series has been great. Our 3 main characters are back to people who run these urban exploration tours. They have people pay money so they can go to these locations that have very dark, very twisted, sometimes supernatural pasts, and they charge people to do these urban explorations with them. So Billy, Tina, and Cal, they are all back. And in the previous iterations. They've dealt with witches, they dealt with ghosts, they dealt with human psychopaths, they've just dealt with evil clowns, you know. Every kind of horror trope you can think of in these different locations. And this one, oh, this one is great because we're going to deal with vampires. They're in this town called Yardley's Cross, and it's a strange town. In 1974, a vampire hunter lived there, actively hunting vampires. But also living there during that time was a centuries-old vampire who also happened to be, he transformed himself because, you know, he's undead, he doesn't really age. He transformed himself into a kind of a big rock and roll star. They had a lot of hits, a lot of success, this rock and roll band. And he's a despicable, horrifying, unforgiving kind of vampire, right? He doesn't care who he kills or how bloody or gruesome it gets. And as they're doing this exploration with their customers, as always, in all these books, it kind of follows a format, but it works wonderfully. It just gets you engaged in the story, makes you want to keep reading. Because we'll go back in time to 1974 to see how things played out between this vampire hunter and this vampire. But in the present day, we're going to get some hints and clues as to other things that are going on. Because not all the tour members are there just for the spooky vibe. Some of them have very sinister ulterior motives for being there. And this town has been abandoned for over 50 years. Everybody in town just disappeared one day, and the town basically went off the map. And we're going to find out the secrets about that town as we find out back then what happened with all these people, and it's not pretty. Trust me on that. And then in the present day, how the town might not be as abandoned as they first thought. And now, not only our three protagonists that run the tour, but their whole tour group is in some pretty serious danger. And there's going to be a lot of blood. There's going to be a lot of head smashing and stakes through chests and people's throats being ripped out as these savage vampires eat and feast off all the blood that they're causing in these people. And yeah, they're going to have to escape with their lives, and you're going to have to read all about that. But as always, it's just so easy to get into the series. One thing I really liked about it, this author just writes them so well-paced, so action-packed, and I love that two time period narrative. I always love that because there are things that we are privy to as the reader, because we can go back in the past from their perspective and see how it all played out between them, that even in the present, the characters in the book don't know. So we know something bad's coming. It's great at building the tension. And then and as always, there's twists in here. And there's one in particular in this book that I was like, wow, did not see that coming. I couldn't believe that, but it was wonderful. It was great. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, if you haven't got in on the series yet, go ahead and pick them all up, of course, because they're all bangers. But I will leave a link down below for this latest one. It's coming out next month, and it's definitely one you want to pre-order because it's just that great. And as I said, there will be a link for that in the description. And next we have Manimus. I really, really love Scott Donnelly's shorter little novellas that he writes. He's written about some sea monsters and other kinds of creatures and things in the woods and a bit of alien abduction kind of deals, you know. And he does it so well, so straightforward. And yet, the way he writes these stories are so beautifully ridiculous and don't take themselves seriously. And yet they're filled with bloodshed and gore and all kinds of nasty things. And at the core, it's really just a fantastic story told in a really, I would say, weird kind of way, but in a good way, you know. They're just so straightforward. They're not trying to do anything except entertain you, and his books are always a lot of fun to read. And that's just as important as anything else. They have to be fun, you know. But that doesn't mean you're missing out on any of the terror, because this is about two brothers and they live in this house, And one of them is a freelance comic book artist. But when they were young, they used to collect things from around their house and make little home movies, their own home horror movies. And they would collect different items and dress them up to be these, what they thought at the time were terrifying creatures. And one of the creatures they created was called Manimus. And this creature is weird. This is the weirdest monster you'll ever read about, because it has different parts of different creatures. You know, one for its head, one for its torso, one for its legs and feet, and it's a combination of all these animals that should not go together. But at the time they were kids, they thought it was cool, they thought it was scary and something different. And they almost forgot about those movies until Manimus actually comes into the real world. And even though it looks like a depiction of a child's drawing of all these different combinations of creatures, it is very vicious and it is very hungry, and pretty soon a lot of blood is going to be shed, a lot of gore is going to be splattered around. And they remember when they were kids, there was a ritual they needed to do in this movie to get this Manimus to disappear, to go back to its realm, but they can't quite remember it. So as the body and body parts start stacking up, it's a race to see if they can figure out what this ritual was, what they need to do to get rid of this thing, because somehow their childhood nightmare, their childhood creation has made it now into their adult real world, and is just causing a lot of brutal chaos all over. And underneath that all is this incredibly, like I said, it's a weird kind of over the top kind of sense of humor to it, but that's what makes it so enjoyable for me. That's what makes these books so much fun, because they're really easy to read. You're not reading a textbook, you know. You're reading for entertainment, and all of his stories have done that for me, which is why he's one of my favorite indie horror authors. And this one I can absolutely highly recommend. I absolutely loved it, and it brought a smile to my face. And you know, what more do you want? And of course, I'll leave a link in the description where you can pick up your copy. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.